students, I am Bindu. Hope you are doing well. As we have understood that lithosphere undergoes many changes, like the very slow movements leading to the formation of the crust. Movement of the continental plates and the sudden dramatic eruption of volcanoes and earthquakes. Now, let us continue and understand much more transformation in the lithosphere due to natural and man-made actions. From class 9th, topic lithosphere. Social studies. Learning outcomes. You will be able to understand how air and water transform the surface of the earth. Work of water. Work of glaciers. Work of waves. Work of wind. Action of vegetation and human beings. Keywords. Weathering. The breaking down or dissolving of rocks and minerals on the surface of the earth. Delta. A delta is an area of low, flat land shaped like a triangle, where a river splits and spreads out into several branches before entering the sea. Gorge. A narrow valley between hills or mountains. Typically with steep rocky walls and a stream running through it. Glacier. A large mass of ice that moves slowly. Erosion. The fact of soil, stone, etc. being gradually damaged and removed by waves, rain or wind. This is the concept map of this topic. How do air and water transform the Earth's surface? Rocks were formed out of the molten material coming from the mantle of the Earth. These rocks, over millions of years, have been shaped into valleys and plains of loose soil. River valleys cut into mountains and plateaus, etc. Actually, the hard primary rocks are broken into smaller pieces. These smaller pieces are cut off from the parent rock and carried lower down to other places and deposited there. Let us understand the process. Weathering. Weathering is a process by which the gradual disintegration of rocks by atmospheric forces or weather forces. The rocks, when exposed to heat, expand and contract when they cool down. This happens during the day and night and year after year in the summer and winter seasons. As the surface rock contracts and expands and contracts again, it gradually becomes brittle and begins to break down. Water and moisture in the air also helps in this process. Water reacts with the chemicals of the rocks and further weakens the rock. These processes by which the rocks are weakened and broken are called weathering. The color of the internal core of the rock is different from the outer layer. The color of the outer layer changes due to this process of weathering. Erosion. Flowing water and wind have great power and can slowly cut away the rocks and soil cover in higher places. Water acts in many ways, such as rain, river, flowing groundwater, sea waves, glaciers, etc. Wind too takes many forms like storms, gusts, steady winds, etc. The active wearing away of the earth's surface by these moving agents is called erosion. Transportation. The eroded material in the form of small rocks, gravel, mud, fine soil, etc. carried by winds and water is called transportation. Deposition. When the rivers and winds slow down, they do not have the force to carry the material anymore and they dump it. These dumped debris help to form plains and river basins. Much of it is actually transported by rivers to the sea, where layers after layer of these deposits accumulate at the bottom and over time get transformed into sedimentary rocks. All four aspects of this process are taking place simultaneously in different parts of the world at different rates, depending on the nature of the slope, the structure of the rocks, the local climate, and interference by humans. Work of water. The work of a river begins from its very source in the high mountains. The flow of a river is very swift as it descends the steep slopes, and it exerts a great force in cutting the mountain vertically. As a result, a deep valley develops, narrow at the bottom and wide at the top. This is usually called a V-shaped valley. In this stage, water has such force that it can move even very heavy and hard rocks. In some cases, where the rocks are very hard, the river cuts a very narrow valley. The sides are so steep that gorges are formed. For example, the Bison Gorge in AP, on the Godavari, Indus Gorge in Kashmir. Do you know? The highest waterfall in the world is Angel Falls. Its height is 979 meters. On river Churan in Venezuela. Another important erosion form is canyon. A canyon is characterized by steep side slopes and may be as deep as a gorge. A gorge is almost equal in width at its top as well as its bottom. In contrast, a canyon is wider at its top than at the bottom. As the river enters the plain, the slope is gentle and the river also slows down. Sometimes, when the river is flooded, it has greater force and cuts the soil, called silt. And when it is not in flood, it deposits silt. A layer of sediment is thus deposited during each flood. Gradually building up a fertile flood plain. In its flood plain, the river often forms meanders, gentle turns like a snake. When a river reaches the sea, the fine material which has not yet dropped is deposited at its mouth, forming a delta. Do you know the biggest canyon in the world is on the river Colorado? The Grand Canyon is 466 kilometers in length. Its depth is 1.6 kilometers and its width is 188 meters to 29 kilometers. Work of glaciers. In very cold regions like the Himalayas, it snows heavily. They get snowfall instead of rainfall. As it accumulates, it flows slowly down till it reaches the warm area. Where the ice melts and a small river starts. This is how the river Ganga is formed from the Gangotri Glacier in the Himalayas. The slow movement of a mass of ice, a river of ice, is called a glacier. Glaciers basically move because of the force of gravity. As the glacier melts and becomes water, it does not have the force to carry the large rocks, which it leaves behind in the form of boulders. Smaller particles and pebbles are left on the bed of the glacier. The glacier brings small pebbles, cobbles, sand, etc. with it. All these debris known as tilts. The deposition of this till is called moraines. Do you know? The largest delta in the world is Sundarbans. It is formed at the mouths of river Ganga and Brahmaputra. Work of waves. The erosion and deposition by the sea waves give rise to coastal landforms. As sea waves continuously strike at the rocks, cracks develop in them over time. Gradually, hollow caves are formed on the rocks. As these cavities become bigger and bigger, only the roof of the caves remains and form sea arches. Further, erosion breaks the roof and only walls are left. These walls features are called stacks. The steep rocky coast rising almost vertically above sea water is called a sea cliff. When sea cliffs weather further, they form rugged capes and bays. The sea waves deposit sediments along the shores, forming beaches, etc. Work of wind. The wind is a dominant agent in hot deserts. About 1/5 of the world's land is made up of deserts. Sand dunes. Due to weathering and persistent wind action, there is a large accumulation of fine sand in many deserts. These form sand dunes. These are unstable hills of sand that move with strong winds. They form a number of shapes as they move and settle down. The action of vegetation and human beings. The biosphere also impacts on lithosphere. Let us find out how. The trees, plants, and grass contribute to the weathering of rocks by driving the roots into fine cracks or holes in the rocks. They also enable water and moisture to enter into the rocks, which further enables weathering. On the other hand, the plant or grass covered on the soil prevents easy denudation or transportation of soil by wind or water. Also, after the Industrial Revolution, human beings have had a major role in transforming the crust on which we live. So, in this video, we have understood that how the air, water, vegetation, and human beings contribute to transform the Earth's lithosphere.